Imagine stepping into the cage against one of the world's best wrestlers. You expect explosive takedowns, powerful throws, and dangerous submissions. Instead, your arm disappears. You can still move, but not the way you want. Every escape feels slower. Every movement feels heavier. Within seconds, your balance is gone, your defense is collapsing, and your opponent seems to be controlling your entire body through a single arm. Welcome to the world of the Dagestani Handcuff. For years, fans have watched elite wrestlers dominate opponents using positions that seem almost unfair. Commentators call it pressure. Coaches call it control. Fans call it the Dagestani Handcuff. But what actually makes it so effective? The answer isn't strength. The answer isn't speed. It's biomechanics, leverage, patience, and intelligent positioning. One of the biggest misconceptions is believing that the Dagestani Handcuff is a single secret technique. It isn't. It's a collection of connected control principles. Different wrestlers perform it differently. Different situations require different grips, but the objective never changes. Control one arm, limit movement, destroy defensive options, create complete dominance. At first glance, trapping one arm doesn't sound impressive. After all, your opponent still has another arm. They still have both legs, they can still move, but human movement depends on connected systems. Remove one important connection, and the efficiency of the entire body begins to collapse. Balance changes, rotation changes, power generation changes. Everything becomes harder. Many beginners immediately search for submissions. Elite wrestlers think differently. First, they establish position, then they establish pressure. Then they remove defensive options. Only after complete control do they attack submissions or strikes. The philosophy is simple. Control creates opportunities. Patience creates victory. Everything begins with contact. A simple wrist grip. Nothing dramatic. No explosive movement. Just enough control to start dictating your opponent's reactions. From this tiny connection, an entire chain of positional dominance can be built. The wrist influences the elbow. The elbow influences the shoulder. The shoulder influences the torso. The torso influences balance. Instead of controlling muscles, experienced wrestlers control structure. And structure is much harder to fight against than raw force. Another secret isn't hidden in the hands. It's hidden in body weight. Elite pressure fighters constantly place their weight where it creates maximum discomfort and minimum escape opportunities. Their opponent ends up carrying both bodies at once. That constant burden slowly drains energy and reduces mobility. Every grappler survives by creating options. Posting on a hand, turning to a hip, building a frame, creating space. The Dagestani Handcuff attacks those options one by one until almost nothing remains. It's less about forcing mistakes and more about making alternatives disappear. This is why elite wrestlers appear effortless. They're not relying on explosive strength. They're carefully removing your choices. Every grip limits another movement. Every adjustment removes another escape. Every second increases pressure. By the time spectators recognize what's happening, the fight is already under complete control. In the next section, we'll break down the mechanics behind wrist isolation, shoulder control, and why even world-class athletes struggle to escape these positions. At first glance, controlling a wrist doesn't look impressive. It doesn't create immediate damage. It doesn't force a submission. But what it does create is influence. The moment one hand is no longer free, every movement becomes less efficient. Simple tasks suddenly become difficult. Turning, posting, framing, defending. The fighter isn't trapped because they're weak. They're trapped because their options have been carefully reduced. One of the biggest surprises for beginners is how exhausting top pressure feels. It isn't pain. It's constant effort. The athlete underneath has to carry extra weight while trying to escape. Their muscles never truly relax. Every breath becomes more difficult. Every movement costs energy. Meanwhile, the controlling wrestler stays calm, balanced, and efficient. The difference in energy consumption becomes enormous after only a few minutes. High-level grappling is often misunderstood as a battle of strength. In reality, it's a battle for position. The better position usually requires less effort. The worse position demands constant work. That's exactly why elite wrestlers obsess over positional control. Every small adjustment makes the next adjustment easier. Eventually, escaping becomes almost impossible without making a mistake. Defensive frames are one of the most important survival tools in grappling. An arm against the opponent's shoulder, a forearm against the neck, a hand pushing the hips away. These structures create space. But once one arm becomes trapped, creating those frames becomes dramatically harder. Without frames, pressure increases, and with increasing pressure comes increasing control. The shoulder is one of the body's most mobile joints. That mobility is also a weakness. By controlling the wrist and influencing the elbow, the shoulder gradually loses freedom. Instead of moving naturally, it becomes pinned into uncomfortable positions. Movement slows, rotation decreases, escape options disappear. The chain continues to tighten. One of the defining characteristics of elite pressure fighters is patience. They don't rush, they don't panic, they don't waste energy chasing unnecessary attacks. Instead, they slowly improve position. Every adjustment has a purpose. Every grip creates another advantage. By the time they attack, success is often almost guaranteed. Many athletes make the same mistake. They panic, they explode, they push with maximum effort. Ironically, those reactions often create even better opportunities for the controlling wrestler. Big movements expose openings. Fast reactions consume energy. Desperation accelerates fatigue. The calmer athlete usually gains the advantage. The audience often misses the most important details. Tiny hand movements, small hip adjustments, slight shoulder pressure, almost invisible weight shifts. Each one appears insignificant by itself. Together, they completely transform the position. Elite grappling is often measured in centimeters rather than meters. Physical control is only part of the equation. Mental pressure is equally important. When every escape fails, confidence drops, frustration increases, decision-making becomes slower. The trapped athlete begins wasting energy trying solutions that no longer work. The controller remains patient. The opponent slowly breaks their own rhythm. The Dagestani handcuff isn't magic. It isn't based on secret techniques. It isn't about overwhelming strength. It's a carefully layered system of pressure, positioning, leverage, and patience. Control the wrist, influence the elbow, limit the shoulder, destroy the frame, remove the post, apply pressure, reduce options, and little by little, complete control emerges. In the next chapter, we'll explore how these concepts are applied during real transitions, how experienced wrestlers maintain dominance under resistance, and why escaping becomes so incredibly difficult once the system is fully established. By now, we've seen how one controlled arm can dramatically reduce an opponent's mobility. But control alone isn't the final objective. Control creates opportunities. When an opponent can no longer build frames or regain balance, the controlling fighter can decide exactly what happens next. Whether it's a transition, a strike, or a submission attempt, everything starts with positional dominance. Every fighter develops a rhythm: move, frame, escape, recover, attack. The Dagestani handcuff interrupts that cycle. Instead of reacting naturally, the trapped fighter hesitates. Every movement becomes delayed. Every decision takes longer. The controller dictates the pace while the opponent struggles to keep up. Pressure isn't about squeezing harder. It's about staying connected. Elite wrestlers rarely create unnecessary space. Their chest stays close. Their hips stay engaged. Their weight constantly shifts to follow every movement. The opponent never gets the freedom needed to escape. Imagine trying to stand up. The moment you move, your opponent moves with you. You roll left, they follow, you turn right, they're already there. The best pressure fighters don't simply hold positions. They adapt instantly to every reaction. That's what makes their control feel inescapable. Championship-level grappling is built on tiny victories. One better grip, one improved angle, one stronger connection. Each small success builds on the previous one until complete control becomes unavoidable. Spectators often notice only the finish. Experts notice every detail leading up to it. Every failed escape has a price. Energy disappears. Breathing becomes heavier. Muscles begin to fatigue. Meanwhile, the controlling athlete remains efficient and relaxed. Over time, even explosive opponents become slower and less effective. Pressure quietly wins the war. Every failed escape has a price. Energy disappears. Breathing becomes heavier. Muscles begin to fatigue. Meanwhile, the controlling athlete remains efficient and relaxed. Over time, even explosive opponents become slower and less effective. Pressure quietly wins the war. Many people expect non-stop action. Elite wrestlers think differently. Sometimes doing less creates better results. Instead of forcing risky attacks, they slowly improve their position until resistance naturally disappears. Patience isn't passive, it's strategic. Viewers often ask why these athletes don't seem tired. The answer lies in efficiency. They rely on leverage instead of strength, position instead of speed, pressure instead of explosive force. The harder their opponent struggles, the more energy the opponent spends. The controller simply stays connected. Viewers often ask why these athletes don't seem tired. The answer lies in efficiency. They rely on leverage instead of strength, position instead of speed, pressure instead of explosive force. The harder their opponent struggles, the more energy the opponent spends. The controller simply stays connected. By this point, one question remains. If the Dagestani handcuff is just a series of control principles, why is it so hard to escape? The answer lies in timing. Most escapes require creating space before rebuilding position. But when constant pressure removes that space, every escape starts from a disadvantage. The longer the control lasts, the harder it becomes to reverse it. Many athletes respond with explosive movements. They push harder, bridge faster, twist more aggressively. Ironically, these reactions often expose even more opportunities for the controlling fighter. Smart pressure turns impatience into weakness. One detail that often goes unnoticed is breathing. Experienced grapplers stay calm under pressure. They conserve energy. They avoid panic. Meanwhile, trapped opponents often waste oxygen through unnecessary effort. Managing your breathing can be just as important as managing your position. At the highest level, championships are often decided by details invisible to casual viewers. A better grip, a stronger angle, a tighter connection, a slight adjustment in shoulder pressure. These tiny improvements accumulate until complete dominance is achieved. Great wrestling is often a game of millimeters. Pressure isn't only physical, it's psychological. When every escape fails, frustration grows. When frustration grows, mistakes appear. The best wrestlers remain patient, disciplined, and emotionally controlled regardless of the situation. That mental consistency is part of their success. Interestingly, the biggest lesson from the Dagestani handcuff extends beyond grappling itself. Small advantages matter. Patience matters. Consistency matters. Success isn't always explosive. Sometimes it's built through hundreds of intelligent decisions made one after another. The same principle applies in sports, business, and everyday life. To casual viewers, pressure wrestling may seem slow. To experienced athletes, it's a demonstration of remarkable technical mastery. Every movement is calculated, every transition has purpose, every second is spent improving position. What appears simple is often incredibly difficult to execute against resisting opponents. The Dagestani handcuff isn't a magic trick, it isn't unbeatable, and it isn't limited to one athlete or one region. It's an example of intelligent grappling fundamentals working together with discipline and precision. Understanding the concept is valuable. Mastering it requires years of dedicated training. The greatest lesson isn't about controlling another person, it's about understanding how small positional advantages can completely change an outcome. The best athletes don't rely on luck. They create situations where success becomes increasingly likely through preparation, discipline, and technical excellence. That's what makes this style so fascinating to study. If you enjoyed this deep dive and learned something new today, consider supporting the channel by subscribing and turning on notifications. Every new video is carefully researched and designed to explain the hidden details behind elite combat sports in a way that's easy to understand and enjoyable to watch. If there's another technique, fighter, or strategy you'd like us to break down next, leave your suggestion in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.